encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith. This is the Light Network. If you want to be a serious Bible student, a successful servant, and a powerful preacher, this is the podcast for you. Hello and welcome to Preachers in Training. My name is Robert Hatfield. This is the podcast on which we discuss all things preaching and ministry. Today, we're checking in with a brand new version of Logos. Logos 10 is out now, and it's kind of like Christmas. Here to help us discuss this today is Michael Hite, joining us from Denver, Colorado, where he serves the Bear Valley Bible Institute there in Denver. And of course, we can't talk about Logos without talking to one Michael Hite. Welcome back, sir. We're glad that you're here.
I'm glad to be here. It's good to see you again. I got to see you just recently in Denver. You were out for our lectureship. It was good to see you without headphones on.
I know. I didn't realize how much the headphones alter my appearance to people, but they said, I don't recognize you without the big cans on your ears.
No, so. your head is much skinnier when you are in person than when I see you on podcast. But no, it's great to be here. I'm glad to be here, and I hope I can help.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. So this is the 10th version of Logos, and they release these once a year? Is that about?
They were on a schedule to go once a year. With the pandemic, 10 was supposed to be launched last year.
Oh, okay.
And it really wasn't. So they are almost 18 months or so into, a little bit more than that, into this cycle before releasing Logos 10. And you can tell there's a lot of stuff they changed. It's pretty dramatic change for some folks. And so we thought maybe we'd just go over some of the basics that they've changed and bring people up to speed.
Sounds good. You can tell once you launch into it. And these Logos episodes are ones that we do recommend maybe watching the video. We'll try and describe things for you audio listeners out there. But go to YouTube, search for my name or Preachers in Training or The Light Network. You'll find this episode, season 16, episode 9. It will help because we're going to have screen sharing up here and sort of walking through some things. Let me just ask you this, and I know your philosophies about upgrading and things like that. Is this worth the upgrade? If there's a fellow on Logos 9, should he seriously consider 10 as we get into this?
Yes. Here's the deal with Logos, and you got to always remember this. You don't have to pay a lot of money for an upgrade to a new version. Mm-hmm. There is always something that they call a cross grade. And a cross grade usually runs about $130 to $150 depending. It gives you all the data sets that you need to run all the new tools. It's not always available on launch, though. Sometimes they wait like 3 months before they make the cross grade available because they want you to upgrade. Yeah. And that usually means a bigger library and more books and all of that kind of stuff. But if you're, it's always hard for me to resist and wait that long. But if you can wait, you can pay for a cross grade that gives you all of the new tools and all of the new features without spending, tons of money.
Oh, good.
And I think that would be the way to go. But I do think the tools in Logos 10 are worth the time. We'll see, as people watch, we'll see what they think of them. But I think you'll find that they can be.
Okay, well, good. I'm excited to dive into these. We've already said that we're going to sort of hit some high points on this episode. We might need to drill down a little bit in a future episode. We've actually talked about doing this before, but Logos 10 and some of the changes that have been made, especially, and I know you're going to get into this, you'll reveal some of those in a minute, but it could be helpful just to drill down and really focus in. So we've got sort of more of an overview kind of episode here. We're going to get our feet wet and then hopefully drill down in the very near future on this. So I'm excited about that too.
Yeah, searching in particular was a massive change. And I don't want to get into the weeds of all of that today. We'll talk about some of the major changes to searches today, but maybe we can come back and talk about some of the under the hood stuff that they changed that really makes searches, very complex searches, far more simple than they used to be. But it's probably more than we want to get into today.
Okay, sounds good. So with that in mind, I guess, are you ready to dive into the software itself and sort of start taking
let me
a
go
look
ahead
at what's going on?
get my screen up. It should be there.
Yes.
I'm going to be looking off to the side occasionally where Robert is, so that I can keep track of things. But I you can see on my screen, and probably one of the first things is how different the interface now looks with everything moved to the left hand side.
Yeah.
Now this is a little disconcerting for some people. When I first turned it on, I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I need you to know that you can change it, and I'll show you how in just a second.
Ah, okay.
But a number of things that they changed was now the go box or the passage box is right at the top. In here, you can type a topic or a passage or a verse or whatever you really want. But that used to be integrated in with the search. They've broken search back out now as its own separate icon on the interface. This is actually goes back 3 or 4 versions. They used to have search as a separate icon,
Oh,
and they incorporated it into the Go box the last few. I think 8 and 9 had it incorporated. It well, they broke it back
mm,
out. But in addition to that, you now have Bible, and if you click on Bible, it just opens your preferred Bible, whatever you've set in your system preferences for your preferred Bible. And they call the preferred Bible now throughout the system Top Bible, which
mm.
I also don't like, because it used to be that they would talk about your top Bibles, and that was a set of like 5 that you could define.
Yeah.
And I think that's too close to top Bible or top Bibles. But it's what they used to call preferred Bible, but it opens it just from
Okay.
this icon.
Is top Bibles still a thing?
Top Bibles is still a thing,
Okay.
but now instead of having a preferred version or a preferred Bible, you have a top Bible, and that's
Okay.
just going to appear in some places. So that's why I mentioned it.
Okay. Can
Fact
you
book,
so you're
yeah,
telling me you can't search from the Go box anymore at all, right? If you type something in up there, it's not gonna render
yeah.
the search.
You're not doing searches from the Go box. Search is
Mhm.
its own separate panel, brings up this search box.
Mhm.
Now you can find information about a topic. So if I
Okay.
type in, for example, baptism, I'm technically doing a topic kind of search in baptism. I'm opening a fact book,
Mhm.
and
I
it's going to
see.
give me all kinds of information about baptism. But it's that searching is actually a separate function now.
Right. And the reason for that, as you mentioned, is because they've really made a lot of strides in the search functionality,
They
and so
have,
maybe it made more
yeah.
sense to break that out as its own
Yeah,
tool
they've
again.
really added a lot of power to this search function now.
Uh-huh.
They've added 3 new types of searches that we'll get into at the end here,
Okay.
and we'll talk about what those are.
Okay.
But that's all new. So
Well, sorry I interrupted
the
you. So
bu-
you're going down
no,
through the
no, no,
basic
please do.
stuff on
No,
there.
no, please do. When you
Okay.
have your questions are going to help me
Okay.
know what you need to understand and know.
Okay.
Sometimes I have the curse of knowledge. I play with this stuff so much, I don't know what's new in some people's minds. So
Yeah. Okay.
Factbook is has been a part of the interface now since Logos 9, and that's nothing new, so we're not going to mention that. Documents used to be the word document. It actually just said DOC. Now it's
Mhm.
its own icon. Does the same thing the documents menu did before. It's just now its own icon uh, to pull this all up. So
Mm.
and then guides and workflows. Guides just used to be the word guides. Now it's a little icon. And then tools used to be a word in the interface that just said tools. Now they've got an icon. The
Mhm.
reason they did that is because one of the problems with Logos is always screen real estate. You always feel like you need more room, right?
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
one of the things they did is with this left side bar, if you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see a little arrow that points to the left. If you click on that, it collapses the whole sidebar now
I
and
like
gets
that.
rid of all of the words.
Mhm.
But they needed icons for some of these so that they would show up. There wasn't room for the words. And now you'll see that that little arrow points to the right, and you can expand and contract the left sidebar by using that arrow. So that's why they added those icons.
Okay. Yeah.
You have the shortcuts area, and shortcuts is just a place where you can drag links to things or particular books that you like. I have a little folder This is not new to Logos 10, so we're not going to spend a lot of time on it, but you can drag shortcuts here, and then layouts and everything else is pretty much the same. I think the one other thing that I want to tell you is, since some people don't like this, if you go to the three dots menu in the lower right hand or lower left hand corner,
Hmm.
you can go to program settings. And the very second one is application toolbar location. You can change that from left back to top.
Mm.
And if I close this, now I'm back with everything on top, just like it was before. And
Hmm.
nobody has to be all stressed out because they moved everything. The only thing they did was they moved the go boxes separate. And there's some new icons for some things instead of just the words. But this looks almost exactly like it did before. So
Hmm.
if you liked it the old way and you resist change, you can certainly change it. You can also go back to program settings and change it back to the left. And when you close it, everything will be on the left hand side.
Okay.
So
I've gotten
those are,
used to the left-hand side navigation
I have
buttons and
two.
stuff.
I,
At first,
I
I like
really
you, I was
like
like,
it.
"Whoa," but it's better now.
And I'll tell you what I really like is collapsing it all
Me
and
too.
keeping it really pushed over to the left. It really does save a lot of room on my
Mhm.
screen. And so I would recommend that everybody at least, give it a shot. I
Yeah.
think you'll find that you like it.
Mhm. I know that, they're
So
really emphasizing the guides and workflows thing. Perhaps that's something you're gonna talk about here in a little while, but when you watch their videos and read some of their promotional stuff about Logos 10, uh, that and search are kind of the 2 big things that stand out in my mind that the marketing team at least is really pushing right now, so.
yeah, there's a couple of, since you mentioned it, under guides and
Mhm.
workflows, there are a number of guides that are pre-done by some guys that are well known in the denominational world. Maybe not so
Mhm.
much in our brotherhood, but Brian Chappell and Hayden Robinson and Michael Heiser and a number and Ralph West and a number of guys in the denominational world have written these very customized study workflows. And if you haven't played with workflows much, they are a way to walk you through a process of studying. And they've
Mhm.
included all of those. And I think they're making a big deal about it just because of the name recognition that some of
Yeah.
those guys have in the denominational world. For those of us in the brotherhood, many of our preachers probably never heard of these guys. So it really doesn't attract us much.
Mhm.
Workflows can be a cool feature, but some of the stuff they've added that they're making a big deal about, I don't think is a big deal in the brotherhood so much.
Yeah. There is a way to create your own custom workflows, I know, right? And you can maybe if you
Yeah, and
study for a
that's
sermon a
been here
certain
for a
way or
while.
whatever. Yeah, okay,
Yep,
good.
that's been part of the software for a while, and they really have refined it. That might
Mhm.
be another whole episode we could do in the future.
Oh,
Is
fun.
look at how to make your own custom workflows and even how to find additional workflows online and that kind of stuff. None of that's really new in 10. Just those specific name branded workflows are what they've updated in Logos 10.
Got it. All right, so what do we dive into as we're focusing on the new stuff?
The new stuff, one of the first things I want to focus on is favorites. It sounds
Mm,
really basic, but if you click into the passage guide or the go box at the top, I should say, if you just start to type the word favorite, it'll bring it up and you can say show favorites. This is like your bookmarks, but they've really added a lot of power to it and they've changed it around.
mm,
Uh, I wanted to start with all of the features that are available to everyone. The new interface and this part of favorites is starter and above. If you just even have a starter library, you're going to see some of these changes. As we get to some of the more advanced ones, they're only available in higher up libraries. But what they did is they renamed bookmarks as quick links, first of all.
mm,
So you'll notice here that you have a set of quick links. Those used to be called bookmarks, and they are just links. For example, I'm going to just open my Bible for a second. My Bible opened here to Mark 3, verse 1, and I have a couple of things I can do. If I'm in Mark 3, verse 1, I can just click this hyperlink that says set link 1 and it set it to
Ah,
Mark 3. That's one way I can do it. I also have a keyboard shortcut that will automatically set the link for me, or I can even drag, uh, whatever I want over to it. I can redo these by just replacing them. So if I go maybe to Matthew 1:1, I can reset that first link to a different one just by dragging them. So you
okay.
only have 9 of these bookmarks, but they give you a keyboard shortcut. So now if I hit Command 1, I'm going to jump to Matthew 1:1. If I jump to Revelation and then I hit Command 1, for example, it's going to jump automatically back to Matthew 1:1. So
Mm,
these quick links give you keyboard shortcuts built in automatically. If you're doing, I find these good for uh, in context study. So as I'm studying something, I may set a few of these, but to me, quick links are temporary. I'm not going to just
mhm.
leave them there permanently. If I want to mark something more permanently, I'm going to drag it down into the favorites,
Yeah.
where I always know I can get to them. Do you
Mhm.
use bookmarks or quick links much?
No, I never have. I put things over on the sidebar, like you're talking about on the left-hand side there
Right,
underneath tools, but, I don't even know
right.
that I knew this favorites thing was a thing.
Favorites is definitely a thing, and that's why I wanted to emphasize it.
Yeah.
For example, I we do a process here at Bear Valley where we talk about keywording books. I actually have a favorites folder that's called keywords, and then inside the New Testament, I have each book of the New Testament, and I have the most frequently occurring words. All of these are searches and favorites. For example,
Oh.
I don't have to recreate these searches. For example, Jesus appears 82 times um,
Mhm.
in um, in the Gospel of Mark. If I want to redo this search, if I just click on it now, it redoes that search that found all of those occurrences
Mhm.
of the in the Gospel of Mark for me. I've just saved it, and I don't have to do it again, and so
Mhm.
I can kind of keep track of that. So favorites is it's just like a favorites or a bookmarks in your web browser. It's a way of saving locations to things, not just searches, but you can save literally anything. You can save any kind of panel can be saved as a favorite, and you can organize them uh, into folders. All you have to do is you can go to the top and say add new folder. So I'm going to click off of the one that I have selected there so that I don't have anything selected. And if I say new folder, it's going to create a new favorites folder. And I can say preachers in training. And I can, anything that I wanted to save in there, I can now just drag into that folder. And later
Huh.
on, when I need anything from preachers in training, those links will be right there.
That's
So
fancy.
now the cool part of this, and really the reason why I wanted, and I can delete that one as well.
Mhm.
The
Mm.
reason why I wanted to bring this up is because they've now synchronized favorites through to your mobile devices. I'm not set up to show you my phone or my iPad on screen right now. I think you guys can get the point, but there's now favorites in the new version of the iPhone app and the iPad app, and they've done a
Mhm.
lot of different changes with the iPad app. And
Mhm.
so imagine this for just a second. I've got a folder that I call chain reference studies. And for example, if you wanted to study with someone about the church, and we all have these studies that we do with new Christians and when we're trying to do evangelism, right? How
Yeah.
do you walk somebody through the uniqueness of the church? Well, there's a number of passages that we might want to go through. Well, I've saved these as a chain reference Bible study. And I would start with Matthew 16:18. Christ is the one that built his church. And then go to Colossians and talk about the church is his body. And well, the cool part is these references now are all in my mobile device right on my phone. If I
Mm.
don't necessarily remember all these verses by heart, all I got to do is go to my favorites and open that chain reference favorites folder, and I can walk somebody through on my phone what each of these verses is and have them turn to each verse. I can add little notes in here if I want to help me describe what each verse is about, but
Mhm.
I can actually walk through these studies with somebody from the favorites. And so you could build this out to have 15, 20, as many as you wanted. Here I have a study on authority, and I created a subfolder, who has authority over us? And
Mm.
I have a number of passages that talk about biblical authority and how God has authority. And I could walk somebody through that study from my phone, even if I don't necessarily remember all the verses by heart.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's really cool. I am thrilled that they're putting more emphasis in the iOS and iPad OS apps. That's really exciting to me. I know we've talked before. I think even here on the podcast, the computer is still where it's at, and the ease of use. It's way easier just to do Bible study, especially in Logos. Adding notes, highlighting text, and all of that stuff. Even what you're doing here with favorites on a computer. But when you have to be out and about without your computer or something, and frankly, I like to read on my iPad, even some of the commentaries or
Right,
whatever I'm reading in Logos, which is great.
right.
But yeah, that I noticed that the favorites thing you were talking about is in that little menu down
Yep,
there, the little three
right.
dots, and
Yep,
yeah, favorites is just right there. That's pretty cool.
yep. And so
Okay.
whatever you store in those favorites, you
Hmm.
can access on your mobile devices. You can even set favorites on your mobile devices, and all of these folders will be there, and you can put more things in, and modify it, and it's synchronized across your system. So
All right.
it works great that way.
That's exciting. Okay.
Yeah,
It's weird to
the
get so excited about favorites, but this is one of those
I
really
but
great attention to detail type
it
features that
is.
the Logos team just does so well. It's just nice.
It is. And if you're writing a paper or you're writing an article, if you're in school, for example, I have a thesis I'm working on, the angels who sinned. I can keep all of my resource references in there, and
Mhm.
when I go back to working on certain things, I can open that up and I can see all of these different things, and they're
Mhm.
different articles and searches, and I mean there's just literally hundreds of things that I can store in there so that I don't lose them and I can go back and look at that research later. So,
And that's even
fav-
better than, like, a lot of times I'll create a layout for all the different things. I'm teaching this Bible class, so I've got a
right,
layout on Philippians or whatever. The
right.
favorites is even better than that. Okay.
It
Nice.
is because you can connect through to articles in encyclopedias and commentaries, wherever that information is. It doesn't matter what's on your screen. You can drag it into that folder. You can organize things,
Mhm.
and really keep it powerful. The other thing that they've added to favorites
Mhm.
is the ability to search favorites now. You couldn't do that
Oh.
before. And as you get, literally thousands of references, you can search for it. Now,
Mhm.
there's one other thing that I want to show you about favorites, and I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but they actually added a lot of power to it.
Yeah.
If you have a resource open, like I have my New American Standard open, if I open the table of contents section, which is the little three bar, I call it a hamburger menu.
Yeah.
It's just a little three-bar menu in the upper left-hand corner. You'll notice now that in table of contents, there's a new icon, and it's the
Oh.
star icon. You'll notice that favorites is a star. This is going to
Ah.
actually show you all of the favorites from this tool that are links to the New American Standard.
Mm.
So basically, this is an index of things that you have favorited from the resource that you have open. Does that make
Wow.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that does
Okay.
make sense.
So if I had favorites, for example, if I had favorites in here, let me see if I can find one real quick to I'm trying to think of some resource that well, let's just say I had it to an encyclopedia. If I
Mhm.
open the encyclopedia and open the table of contents and clicked on favorites, it would show you everything in that encyclopedia that you have favorited and
Mm.
where it is in your favorites. These are all references to the New American Standard that are saved in my favorites.
Wow.
And so they've added that connection to each individual resource, which makes it a lot more powerful.
What about quick links? If you have one of the 9 quick links at the very top that is set maybe to another resource, will it still show you
It
the
would
same?
it it wouldn't show it to you. For example, if I had one of them set to the ESV. If I real quick go over to the ESV, you'll notice all of those change.
Okay.
The quick links remain always available.
Okay.
But if I click on the quick link, it's going to take me back to the New American Standard. It's not going to take me to the ESV.
Okay. Makes sense.
Makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's some of what's going on. The fact that these are all synchronized now to your mobile devices makes them far more powerful. I know it seems like favorites is a silly thing, but this can become a really, really powerful tool as you're doing research for a sermon or a Bible class. You could create a folder. You could put all your research into that folder for Bible class or for your sermon, and just always have it there.
Well, and once again, it keeps all of your study within Logos. You're not dipping out into a notes app or something like that, which is nice too.
Yep.
Okay.
So that one's a biggie.
Yes, it is.
After favorites, and I don't want this podcast to be 2 hours long, so we'll try to go a little faster.
I'm sorry, it's my fault. I start nerding out too.
No, that's the problem with Logos, and I'll be here as long as you'll have me. We can put an intermission in the YouTube channel or something, so that people can go take a break. But no, that's the problem with Logos, is it's so deep. There's lots to talk about. Yeah. The second thing I really wanted to talk about is changes to the fact book. And fact book is kind of this encyclopedia, this resource that is, everything is kind of coalesced into the fact book. The last couple of years, they've put a lot of work into the fact book. When you search for a topic, for example, this one that came up, I was looking at John Chrysostom. You can see it gives me some basic information about him, gives me a key article, shows me events from the timeline that are created, shows me works in the library that might be available, dictionary articles, journal articles. I mean, it's basically searched my whole Logos library for information on John Chrysostom and put it right here for me to digest. But one of the things that they've added is they've expanded the church history themes in the fact book. If you click on the little hamburger menu in the upper left-hand corner, you'll notice you have a pull-down menu here. And this is just the behind-the-scenes way that Logos organizes topics in the fact book. But when you scroll through this, you'll notice now that you have a church history theme index within the fact book. And I'm finding this interesting. The topics that it has are very interesting. For example, one of them, the rise of the papacy. Where did the popes come from, right? When you click on this, notice what it does. It gives you timelines and when things happened, the rise of the papacy from the Ante-Nicene Fathers, the Nicene Fathers, the Byzantine Church era. All of these are timeline events that will open the advanced timeline that we're going to talk about in a little bit. There's an article, there's a key article. There are key developments and who was instrumental in these things, kind of this little bullet point outline of this topic. It talks about the key people that were involved. It's going to start talking about the initial popes, and it gives you dates and things. All of this information has been coalesced for you. And key events, what dates things happen and what happened. So they've gone through and really added all of this information about church history and dumped it into the fact book. And so there's tons of research here on church history. And if you're a church history nut, I work with a couple of church history fans. John Moore loves church history. He was so excited by this tool, and the amount of research that's available here is very, very impressive.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. This is another thing I have heard them talking about a little bit. I mean, it's something that they seem to be pretty proud of, and I can see why. This is great.
Yeah, this is one that they've spent a lot of time on, and it's going to appear throughout fact book entries and that kind of stuff. But the fact that you can go straight to these church history themes, and so you want to look at the idea of when Lutheranism was established in Germany. How did Lutheranism come about? Well, here's all this information about the start of Lutheranism right here for you. And all of these are hyperlinks to other fact book articles and that kind of
Mm.
thing. So, the amount of information you can glean from here is pretty amazing.
Is the best way to get to that. So you opened fact book, and then from the little hamburger menu, you drop down to church history theme. That's the best way to access that if somebody's trying to
Yeah,
just
that's the
open it.
best. Yeah, if you want to just overview what's available, it's this little pull down menu right underneath. Once you open the hamburger menu and you open up this left side column, there's a little pull down menu at the top, and you just want to go down to see church history themes and click on it, and you're going to see all of these articles. And you
Got it.
can click on the rise of Protestant liberalism
Mhm.
and walk your way through all of that information.
That drop down is not filtering your searches though in the fact book, right? That
No,
okay.
it's how they index all of the things that Factbook can deal with.
Got
I
it.
mean, when
Okay.
you look at this list, if it was a person, for example, if I was looking up John Chrysostom, it's going to give me person,
Mhm.
um, and it's going to show you all the people that you could look up in Factbook. Now, we wouldn't
Mhm.
do it that way. We would probably just type in the name of a person,
Yeah.
but these are all the fact book entries that have people's names.
Okay.
I mean, it's pages and pages and pages,
Yeah.
but
So that's
but
an
to get
index,
to
not a filter
yeah,
system. It's an
right.
index.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an index.
Okay.
They've just added these faceted filters everywhere. So
Mhm.
you could work with the fact book just by opening this up almost like a table of contents and
Yeah.
going to a apostle and then saying Paul. Okay, so this is about Paul.
Yeah.
Well, I would just type Paul in the search box.
Right.
I wouldn't do it that way, right?
Mhm.
But what are there are some other things that you hadn't thought about that you could see if you opened up the table of contents?
Yeah.
Make sense?
Wow. Yeah, it does. I like that. I'm glad to know how to get to
Now,
that church history timeline. That's good.
Now, all of these fact book entries are connected to something that we see elsewhere. For example, if I open my Bible, and again, I have my New American Standard is my top Bible, my preferred Bible. You have a fact book pull down here that's called fact book tags, and you'll see this little arrow right next to the fact book icon at the top of your resources, and you can turn certain ones off and on. But if I click on the little book, as I scroll through, I'm going to see little dotted lines underneath sees here has this little blue dotted line underneath it. It's kind
Mhm.
of hard to see, but that means that there's a fact book entry for Pharisees. If I right click on it and choose Pharisees, I should be able to get on it, and it's going to open the fact book. It's going to open a fact book for that entry. And I can see, the Pharisees asked for assigned Pharisees, and here's a whole article on Pharisees. And it's already tagged in your resources. For example, also in verse 6, I don't know who the Herodians are. The Pharisees went out and immediately began conspiring with the Herodians. The Herodians, it's already built in. I can go to dictionary articles and encyclopedia articles. I can read this key summary from the Lexham Bible Dictionary on who the Herodians were. All of this information is available to me simply because they added these fact book tags throughout all your resources.
Hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah, yeah, it really does.
Now, when people first got this feature, they were irritated by all of these words that are underlined in their text, and they were like, "I don't want all that marked up in my text. How do I turn it off?" Well, you
Yes.
click on the little fact book icon and you turn it off, and then you forget that it exists for the rest of your life and you never
Yes,
use it.
this is true.
um, But if you click to turn it on, you'll find that it's valuable. For example, I'm reading in Mark chapter 3, verse 8. It says they went from Jerusalem and from Udumea. Where on earth is Udumea? I don't remember. I can click on it. Here's all the information I could ever want about Udumea. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And all I had to do is single click from a word in my resource. So there's a lot of power here. The problem is people don't like the onion underlines, and so they turn them off, and then they don't know what it has a fact book tag and what doesn't. Now there is a trick.
Mm.
And the trick is, you'll notice this, if I turn off the fact book tags, you'll notice this is not selected.
Mm-hmm.
And I hover over Udumea, nothing appears. If I turn it on, when I hover over Udumea, it gives me this little box that gives me information. And that's telling me that this is actually a fact book tag. So the problem is, with it turned off, there's no way for you to know that Udumea is already built into the fact book and you can do all this research. You have to turn it on and leave it on to see it. And again, some people just don't like that because there's too many underlines. Okay.
I see. You know, it could also be too, like if I had a text, I like that one of the things you taught me one of these previous episodes is I can click on a word and it'll highlight all of the words, you know, every time that word is used throughout the text, which I love.
Right.
So let's say I wanted to see how many times the Pharisees are mentioned in Mark chapter 3. Well, if the fact book thing is on, it's not going to do the highlight thing. So then I have to go and turn it off, right?
Yeah, because as soon as you click on it, it gives you this whole other thing rather than now. I think it probably does mark them. Maybe it doesn't. But if I turn it off, it does show me. It gets those things out of my way.
Yeah.
The trick is not to forget that it's there.
Right.
And maybe it's an extra click. So if I'm here and I want to know what Beelzebul is, but I don't have my fact book turned on, I can right click and I can do all kinds of things to try to figure out what Beelzebul is. But the first thing I would do is turn on my fact book and see if it's underlined. It is. Yeah. So click on it and open the article on Beelzebul, right? And then when I'm finished with this, I can maybe turn that off if it's in my way until I get to another thing that I see that I want to look at. And in that case, I can turn it back on and see if there's a fact book tag for that, and I can go from there. Now, the neat part is that they've extended fact book tags to resources outside of your Bible. So encyclopedias now have fact book tags. There's all kinds of things that have fact book tags now. And you can do the same kind of thing from an encyclopedia entry as you can from your Bible. So they made it a lot more powerful.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I think I did the thing that you're saying that a lot of people do that they shouldn't do. And not long after I upgraded, I turned off the fact book thing.
Turned it off?
Probably because I wanted the highlight. I really like that highlight feature. And it must have been a fact book tagged word that I was trying to highlight throughout a text or something. So
might have been. Yeah. And so it might have interrupted that. It might have. I don't think it should have, but it might have.
Okay. I'll do some testing on that.
Yeah, I'll do some testing on that too and see. But what happened is
yeah, okay.
Tons of people turned it off and then they forget what it is and why it's there. But it really is a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
Now, the cool part is that those fact book tags now are also searchable. I'll talk about that when we get to searches. But you can now search just for fact book tags and where things appear. And I'll show you that when we get to the search feature. We're going to do that last.
Okay, good.
But fact book tags are now searchable.
By the way, I did just find an instance. I've got logos pulled up here on another screen, and I've got fact book tags turned on. I hit a word, and in addition to opening the fact book article, it also highlighted all those words in my Bible. So
where are you? What verse?
I'm in Mark 3:21, and I just highlighted family, and a bunch of
Okay.
words came up. I was just trying to find any word I could click on that would.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. So
so
it
there you
still
go.
works.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would encourage everybody leave factbook tags on for a
Mhm.
while and just see if it irritates you as much as you think it does. I don't think it will, but it might. Some people just might be irritated by it and don't want it. But then they forget the tool. So that's
Yeah.
that's the issue. All right. Real briefly, another thing that they added that they're making a real big deal about that I don't make a big deal about is Sermon Builder.
Mhm.
They have added some functionality to Sermon Builder. And the reason I don't do it is because I don't build my sermons in logos.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to make enemies. I'm going to open Sermon Builder for just a second. Sermon Builder the potential for it is a really cool tool, but it does not create a sermon outline the way I make a sermon outline. And
Yeah.
I've been doing this for a while. I have a very standardized structure to my sermon outlines that I've been doing now for 20 years.
Right.
I'm not going to change that for logos,
Mhm.
right? And so as a result, I come in here to build a sermon and I'm lost because
Right.
it's doing things that in a way that I don't do it. So from that standpoint, just understand I'm going to just create a text here. This is a text, and if I click on the text in here, you'll notice, say I was writing a sermon on mercy. Well, I can say this is, I'm just going to say this is about mercy. I'm making a point in my sermon about mercy. If
Mhm.
I click on this and select it, I've got all of these, I can make it bold or underline, but they've added this little icon that is it's quotation marks. And if you click on it, you now can search a database of popular quotes that are just about that topic. So since I selected the word mercy, it's going to go through this popular quotes index and it's going to find me all these quotes from famous denominational guys: Martin Luther, John Chrysostom, Charles Spurgeon, again, Matthew Henry, a bunch of guys. But all of these quotations are about mercy, and I'm searching for a good quote to insert in my sermon on mercy. Now, the problem with this for us is most of us are not going to quote many denominational guys in our sermons.
Mm.
And there's not going to be much brotherhood stuff here because we don't have those resources in Logos. So I don't know how useful this is for most people.
Mhm.
And I don't build my sermons in it at all. But you just need to know that it's there.
Yeah.
The other thing that they're making a really big deal about is connected to Sermon Manager or Sermon Builder, but it's really in Sermon Manager. And when Sermon Manager has some amazing potential to store your sermons and let you create a schedule of the year. I don't know if you've ever looked at this before,
Mhm.
but you can actually see a calendar for the whole year, and you could map out, even if you don't build your sermons in Logos, you could map out your whole year's worth of sermons in a tool like this. What topics are you going to preach in January? And you could go through and look at each week of the year, and you could, say what you're going to preach on. Kind of, I don't know if you do this. I do. I got to map out my sermons well in advance, and I can
Yes.
use this to do that. Well, you can now import. You can click Add, and you can import. See, I didn't even remember where it was. Shows you how much I forgot now where you add it. You can add your Word documents into Sermon Manager. So if you have a folder full of Word documents um, of your previous sermons, you can dump those all into Logos to keep
Mhm.
track of them.
Mhm.
When you preached them, what the topics were, what the verses were, all that information. The problem with it is it's going to convert them into the format from Logos Sermon Manager, which
That
I don't
seems
like.
strange. Yeah.
So for some guys, it would be a place to store them, even though they're going to keep the Word documents and work from the Word documents unless they like Sermon Manager and the way Sermon Manager works.
Yeah.
If I was a brand new preacher, I might look at Sermon Manager and say, is the format in a way that I like it?
Yeah.
Can I learn to use their format for a sermon outline and do it? Because there's nothing wrong with their format. It's just not the way I do my sermons.
Mm-hmm.
And if that were the case, you could maybe dump all your sermons in and store it that way. They're making a real big deal about this feature. To me, not so much. It's not going to help, I don't think, a
Yeah.
long-term preacher.
I thought at the very least you could dump your if you have everything in Word, which I don't do a lot of my sermon writing in Word, but if you
No.
do, at the very least, I thought you could import it in that way. It comes up in your search results. You can kind of search that content.
Right. That's the advantage, is now they're in there. So
Right.
if you're looking for a topic, when you search a topic, you're going to find your sermons that you did.
Mm-hmm.
So there's value, but like, I don't know about you, I write all of my sermons in pages because I'm a Mac guy.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to go to those sermons. I'd have to convert them to docx format. I'd then have to import them into Logos, not to use them from Logos, but to actually just dump them in. Okay, you found it.
This is my screen here, but you can choose files, but they only support. You can do
docx.
Empty sermons from metadata in a comma separated file or docx. So anyway,
the schedule. If you created a spreadsheet that said on October 10th I'm going to preach this, and on November 5th I'm going to preach that, and you saved it as a CSV file, you could dump it into Sermon Manager for the calendar. But if you actually want to put the sermon outlines in, they have to be in docx format.
Okay. Yeah.
So I apologize to everyone out there that loves Microsoft Word and does things that way, but since I don't, it's not a feature that I use, and so it's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. One of the other things that they've done is they've added the ability to add print books to your library.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what they've done is the ability to, if you open your library panel, just click on library, and open the sidebar, you'll now see that you have all of these filters. You can filter by type and fact book, but if you scroll down, there's a new category called print library, and it'll show you. I can show you that I have added 15 books from my print library into Logos. Now, here's what you need to understand very clearly. In order to add a print book into your Logos library, first it has to be available to purchase from Logos.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't just put any book in existence. They don't have the whole, Library of Congress available. It has to be from publishers that you have to be able to buy the book from Logos, but you're not buying the book. You are just putting it into your library. And when you do that, now what happens is when you do searches, and I'll show you when we get to searches, you can actually search your print books for a term, and it will tell you what page to look on in your print book. You can't read the books in Logos. You can't mark them up. It's not adding the book to your Logos library like a regular book because you haven't bought it from them. Mm-hmm. But when you do a search, it'll tell you that on this book, Baxter's Explore the Book, if I do a search, it's going to show me, hey, turn to page 59 in Baxter's, and you're going to find this information that you searched for. Mm-hmm. Make sense?
It does. I like that. Hey, I guess that's fair enough, right? If you want to merge your print library with your digital tools, that sounds good.
It's a way that you can, one of the things that happens is once we jump into an electronic library, we find ourselves not using our print library as much. Mm-hmm. And the reality is there's a lot of good material in our print books, but how do you find it? How do you know that it's there? And this is a way. Now, first of all, the process of going through your whole library, I'm looking at your video. All the bookshelves are. What you're going to have to do is take your phone,
Right.
and there's a new choice in your phone to scan the QR codes, the ISBN number on the cover of your books. And what you do is you open that up and you take a picture of that QR code, and it tells you whether or not it's going to add it or not,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's available or not. If it has it, it adds it automatically, and you put the book back and you take the next book and you scan it. Now, how long is that going to take you in your office there to scan every book on your library?
It took me quite a while, and that's why I only have 142 that are not in
Yeah,
my
see,
that are in my print library. I have
you're
142.
far more patient than I am because I've only added 15 so far.
It was just
So,
fun.
but
It was fun to go
it
through
is,
and do
it
the
is,
thing.
it is. It's neat. I mean, it's cool tech, right?
Yes.
And now when you do a search, it's going to say, this is your search results here in Logos, but here are
Mhm.
some books that you own. And if you'll go take them off your shelf and turn to page 127, you're going to find this information. And so,
Yeah.
and you haven't had to spend any money to buy these books. Now, the thing that everybody's angry about or frustrated about online is they're saying, I want to be able to read these books once I add them. Well, Logos says, fine, buy them. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
we had to go through the heartburn of turning them into digital books. You need to pay us for that. And people are
Yeah.
like, no, I don't want to pay you for it. I already have the print book. Well, that doesn't work. So some people are frustrated by this. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
And most people are finding that about half of their library is available to them to add into their Logos library. Ours
Mhm.
probably is going to be a little less than that. Again, there aren't as many Brotherhood publications available, so you're probably not going to find as many available as you could.
Well, and one thing I found too was that older books, maybe if they were published in the 70s, early 80s, they didn't even have an ISBN barcode on the back of them. They may have a number, but that doesn't do you any good.
80% of my books are old time Brotherhood publications
Yeah.
that don't have an ISBN number or code, so
Mhm.
they're never gonna go in.
You know what else got
But
me was books that I published from like a bookstore. Even if they're available in Logos, if the bookstore added their own barcode on a sticker on the back, and you can't get those stickers off exactly right.
no,
So that,
it's got to be the
yeah.
exact version
Mhm.
from the publisher that Logos is getting their version from. So
Mhm.
if yours is version 2, I'm thinking about a book that I have called Grasping God's Word. I've got the
Mhm.
second edition. Well, what's available in Logos right now is the 4th edition. It probably wouldn't add those in because they're not the same.
And that makes
And if
sense
it
because it
did,
would tell you the wrong page number in your
page
search
number,
result.
right? The
Yeah.
page number would be wrong. And then I'd get mad at Logos and I'd say the tool doesn't work. And, so it creates all kinds of problems. But
Yeah.
but we do need to know that that's available. And I'll show you again when we get to search how that functions. But it's kind of cool.
Okay.
Well, let's just do it. Let's just do it now since we're talking about it. If you open search, one of the new searches is called books.
Ah, okay.
And if I look at my search query line, search all text and all resources. Notice now I've got a pull down here. I can search all resources, all open resources. Um, but if I now see, I'm probably jumping ahead of myself, but no, this should be where I can do it. So if I search for um, a print book,
Mhm.
I'm gonna go back to my library. I'm gonna open this Baxter's Explore book. And now if I click on all resources in my search, I can say all open resources
Mm.
and I can search for Jude. And it's going to show me every place in my print resources
Ah,
where
okay.
the word Jude occurs. Okay. So there's
Mhm.
there's lots of different ways this is going to show up, but you're going to have this separate section called print books in your
That's
search
nice.
results.
Mhm.
Okay. So all right. One other thing, and then we'll get to searches, and I don't want to take all your whole afternoon.
No.
Um, there's two tools. First of all, print library is in gold and above. It's not available to anything under gold library. So if you don't have
Okay.
a gold library, you can't do the book anyway.
Mm-hmm.
The other tool that I think is incredible, and I this is where technology is getting to, is called auto translate. I just opened my Bible, and now in the upper right hand corner, I have this little icon. If I hover over it, it just calls it the sidebar. But if I open it, you'll notice that it says translate.
Mm.
And what I can do, I'm in Mark chapter 3, verse 21. I can select this text and I can choose a language here. I'm going to just scroll down and I'm going to find Spanish. And it has translated Mark 3:21 into Spanish for me.
Mm.
Now, when you think about that, that's pretty cool. It is not looking it up in a Spanish resource. It's actually the computer knowing how language works. And through machine learning, it's actually translating this material on the fly,
Wow.
which
Mm.
means it can translate any text in any resource to almost any language. Now, there's a caveat, and that is they say it's not perfect, but it's close. So
Yeah.
if somebody spoke Spanish, they may say, well, grammatically, this isn't exactly right. Well,
Mm-hmm.
but it's close enough that it can communicate to somebody that's, doesn't speak the language.
Yeah.
Now, I find it interesting. I have a friend here. His name is Wes Autry. He works with the church in Cambodia. And he's been trying for the last couple of years to learn Khmer, which is the language in Cambodia.
Mm-hmm.
And I showed him this the other day, and he about strangled me. I can scroll through here because of all the heartburn he's been going through. I can convert this, and it translated it into Khmer.
Wow.
So he can actually take snippets of the Bible or lexicons or encyclopedia entries, any resource that you can imagine, and he can select text and he can actually translate it into Khmer and share it with his students without speaking the language.
Hmm. That's amazing. Hey, I noticed
So
that little. I've got it pulled up on my screen too, and to the right of the word translate, there's that circle. And when I hover over the circle, it says you've used 0% of your monthly translation limit.
yes,
Okay.
I can't find what that is as far as
Okay.
what the limit is.
Okay.
Here's the deal. You're using their servers to do this. This is kind of like Siri on your phone.
Yeah.
Siri has to go to the server to do its thing and bring it back to your phone at some level.
Mhm.
At least it did at the beginning. And so this does not replace, for example, if you are a Spanish speaking person, you don't want to buy an English version of Logos and be translating everything. It
Yeah.
would clog their servers.
Mhm.
And so it's going to put a limit on it, but I can't find anything that says what that limit is. It
Okay.
seems pretty high because in testing this, I spent one afternoon that I must have translated, I don't know, 100 things, and it
Mm.
still said you've used 0% of your monthly limit. So,
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, it's not like you get to translate 10 passages and you're done.
Right.
It resets you know, every month. So
Mhm.
they just don't want you to translate the entire logo system into
Mhm.
another language. But if you need a few passages here and there, it's a very cool tool.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Also, if you were reading a commentary or something that had a passage, for example, in Latin, you could translate that Latin back into English for you so
Mhm.
that you could read it. So the translate both works both ways. You could translate from Spanish to German or for whatever the case may be. It's a cool tool.
That's such a neat feature. I mean, wow.
It,
But
it
that
it's
also means since it's sending it off to the servers, that means you would have to have an internet connection. I mean, which most of us are
yes,
rarely without one. But if you don't have
right. But
Wi-Fi
that
or something, it's not going to work.
Yeah, that one does require an internet connection to use.
Okay.
So, and lastly, before we get to searches, the other tool that they've talked a lot about is their advanced timeline. And it's in the tools menu. If you go down to reference, they've completely redone the timeline. Now, timeline is a tool that I've had a love-hate relationship with for a long time. I'm still not sure that I'm to love yet, but I'm a lot closer than I was before. And
Okay.
it's because they've now created divisions and sections that really allow you to use this tool more effectively than you could before. When we used it before, if you noticed up at the top left corner, it says all events. In my library, there are 18,292 events that this timeline can map. And if I use the hamburger menu, you can start to see how it's breaking things up. For example, the type of event now are grouped together. You've got archaeology, you've got arts and culture, you've got the church history themes from the fact book that we talked about, you've got conflict, you've got groups of people, and you can see these as subcategories now. And I can actually collapse these in the timeline to get them out of my way as I move through the timeline, which you weren't able to do before. The other thing is, if I just want to focus on archaeology, I can get rid of all of them except for archaeology. And now I've narrowed down what I'm looking at just in archaeology. Okay, it says I have 18 events from archaeology. Am I making sense so far? Now, the other thing is that when I looked at something like this is what my screen would look like. I've got snippets. Well, where are these 18 things? If I go to the fit menu in the upper right-hand corner now, notice it says show all matching events. If I click on that, it automatically adjusts my timeline so that all 18 events are on my screen.
Ah, okay.
Now, that in and of itself is the best thing they did, because what it used to be that these would be spread out over 1,000 years on my timeline. I'm looking at 50 years on my timeline, and it's like, where do I scroll on my timeline to find these events? I have to just kind of keep scrolling to find them. Well, here's one that says that it's from 5,000 BC, and here's one from 1976.
Yeah.
How do I know where in that timeline? Look at what my timeline is saying. Right now, my timeline is showing me from 7,400 BC to 11,080. I'm not sure why it's 11,000. It's so that this text will fit. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
But by saying fit in the screen, all 18 of these archaeological events are right here for me to look at.
Nice.
And so it makes it so much better than trying to figure out, if I do a filter, if I do a search, where those things are in the timeline. I also have this view. Yeah. In the upper right-hand corner, I also have view, and I can view it by subject and type, or I can view it just by type. Now, type is this event type. Subject is this area right above it. And if I do subject and type, I've got this column along this side. See where it says biblical studies? And then as I scroll down, I've got a section for world history. That's these subject areas. And then these pull downs, or these collapsible areas, are this event type. So I can do both, or I can do one. I can just look by subject, or I can look by type. Or if I say none, it just turns off everything and shows me, like if I go back to all, and this is what the timeline used to look like. It was just everything on the screen all at once. Now I can sort things by subject and type, and it organizes it in a way that I can collapse things, I can organize things, I can kind of work my way through it, or I can actually filter out things and say, I just want to look at church history stuff for right now. Well, here's all the church history themes from that database and where they appear in the timeline. Does
That's
that make
neat.
sense?
Yes, it does. I got a question. How do you typically interact, or how do you typically get to the timeline? Do you come to it out of like a fact book article or a search or something, or do you go to the timeline and hunt for something?
Both, but most of the
Okay.
time I come here from a fact book article that
Okay.
tells me what timeline I'm in, right? I can jump and it'll show me where I am in history. The other
Mhm.
thing is if I want to look for something specific, I'll come and see if I can find what I'm looking for. Um, I'm trying to think of a good example of what I might come look for, but if I
Right.
wanted to look find John Chrysostom. See, I've got individuals, and see, this is what would happen. I would search for John Chrysostom, and I got nothing. Well,
Yeah.
it's telling me I got 4 events, but where are they? I have to go to fit, show matching entries, and now they should be here somewhere. Uh, there we go. That worked well, didn't it?
Yeah.
Um, why did it not?
Oh, is it because you've got the view? Does that have anything to do with it?
It
I don't know.
could.
Because you have show eras none rather than biblical and church or Western. I think it is that something to do with it?
Yeah. See, this is my love hate
Yes.
relationship with this
Yeah.
tool.
Well, we're still getting used to it.
And yeah, yeah, I am still getting used to it.
Oh,
It
do
says
you
I
do you
have
have to
four.
check it? Check. Do you have to hit the check mark beside individual? Oh,
Now,
that didn't
maybe
do
if
anything
I do.
either. What is
Oh,
going
I
on?
had to scroll up. It was
Oh,
just scrolled off the screen.
okay.
I just had to scroll. Okay, but see, here are the four. But see, you see what I mean? They've made
Yeah.
it better, but it's still clunky at
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
But here it tells me who he was. He's when he became a priest, when he died, that kind of
Okay.
stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the bigger issue here is where does this information come from, right? Well, if you click on this little info box, it's going to open a right side column. And now if I click on one of the events, it's going to show me the book and the article where it comes from.
Oh,
And so if
okay.
I look at the death of John Chrysostom, where did it get that from? It should tell me what the information was. And of course, this particular one is just telling me this book of the complete when and where of Bible history. It's
Yeah.
not showing me where it got his death from. So
Mm,
again, not completely helpful.
right.
Um, but if I clicked on this, it would actually take me to this article on Chrysostom, and
Okay.
you see these little flags. These little
Mhm.
flags in your resources tell you that those are timeline events.
Got it.
So
Okay.
every place you see a little flag in any kind of encyclopedia means that information is listed on the timeline. Now that's the other way that I get to timeline is if I'm in here where I'm looking at Jerome completes the Vulgate and I see that it mentions this time period, I can click on this and it will open that timeline
Mhm.
to that period of time. And if I get rid of John Chrysostom, it's going to show me everything that was going on in that time frame.
Ah, okay.
So it'll show me related items. Make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah, it
So
does.
again, I have a like hate relationship with the advanced timeline. It's better than it was. It used to drive
Right.
me really crazy. Now they've at least added some power to it to help me work my way through it.
I mean, that's gotta be a hard thing to strike the right balance. Not trying to take, to
No, no, I agree with you completely. The
mount
the
the
amount
defense
of
for logos.
information,
Yeah.
yeah, the amount of information there coalescing into this tool is massive.
Yeah.
And how do you present it in
Mhm.
some usable fashion is a challenge.
I think I'm just
Um,
kinda glad to see that that's a priority for them and that they are trying to
yep.
strike that balance somehow.
Now the other thing they did to try to make this easier too is they created this heat map along the bottom,
Mhm.
and the heat map shows you the time frame is that you're looking at. In my upper left, you'll say right now my timeline is 3:45 to 4:10, and that's actually represented down here by these two little circles. And I can grab the start date and I can pull it to expand my time range further. And
Okay.
I can grab the end date and I can pull it further out. And then I can also click in the middle of that time frame and keep the same span of time, but move it in history, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes any sense. The other thing I can do is I can actually point at these individual little bars in the timeline, the heat map, and I can click on one, like this one is 2970 BC, and I can click on it, and it's going to center that in my screen and show me what's going on at that timeline.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of touchy because there's not, but like I got to 20 BC, here's 20 BC, and this is all the stuff that they have that's occurring in 20 BC.
Mm.
So it's, again, it's neat. I don't always, um, I don't always feel like I can get my hands around how to navigate this tool effectively, but they have created a lot more tools to help us do that. And I think the more I use it in Logos 10, the better it's going to be.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Nice.
right. All right. I don't know how long we've been going, probably far too long for your audience.
Hey, if somebody is listening or watching a Logos episode, I think that they know what they're getting into, right? We are at about 11 minutes past about an hour or so going through this.
Okay.
So, but it's
Let's try
good.
to do 15 more minutes.
Okay.
And we'll, because we got to just at least touch on search.
Good.
And I'm just going to give you an overview. First of all, they have added a lot more search helps in this screen, explaining how to do basic search operations, how to search for keywords and what the syntax is and that kind of stuff. If I open the hamburger menu or the left side menu, I've got all kinds of search templates that I can do, and it's going to help me figure out how to do more complex searches. So they've beefed this up a little bit, but the real meat in search is you'll notice now there's more up here than there used to be. There used to be 6, I think, and they've added a few. First, the one that they added was the word all. Now, you used to be able to do a basic search and search everything in your library, right? If you clicked on basic, one of your choices was search everything for a particular topic.
Mm-hmm.
What they did, this all replaces everything. Okay. So, for example, if I type the word synagogue and I do an all search, it's literally the kitchen sink of searches for the synagogue. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think they need to do better in segmenting this result so it makes sense. But you've got results in different databases. You've got fact books. You've got a search of your Bible for the word synagogue. You've got encyclopedias. It'll search your documents. It'll search your atlases. It'll search thesauruses. It'll search. I mean, I can just keep scrolling. It searches your whole library. I mean, look at. I mean, I just typed in synagogue, and I can be here forever scrolling
Yeah.
through this list. It literally media. It is the kitchen sink of searches,
Mm-hmm.
and that's good. I personally never used the basic search everything because it's like going to Google and searching the word love. You're
Yeah.
going to get 12,742,000 results. I don't know that you can manage that, right? Well,
Yeah.
this is at some level that kind of search. I mean, it's just, I mean, I'm still scrolling. I feel like in Moana where he jumps down into that pit and he's, I'm still
I'm
falling.
still
I'm
fine.
still scrolling. And how much information is here? More
Yeah.
than you could possibly ever digest, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
they put this all into one search called all, and either got it out of the way or made it more powerful. I don't know how you want to look at it. In addition to this, they now have the books, and we talked about searching for books. This is what used to be called a basic search.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And you can search all text and all resources, or you just your open resources, or your top Bibles, or collections that you've created. None of that's new. You've had collections for years. You can create a collection of like archaeology books and just search your archaeology books. I can select just my archaeology books and search for Jericho, and it's going to show me every place in just my archaeology books where it mentions Jericho. Okay. So that's not particularly new. The name of it is new. And it's, it helps with that. Now, if I do all resources, the one I wanted to show you is if I search in quotes for the phrase law of expectation and I hit enter, I know that in my print books, I have a book in my library called The 7 Laws of the Learner. And now watch, it's not going to pull it up. It did the other day for me. But for whatever reason, it's acting really slow. There it is. So I had a filter turned on that was slowing it down. Here is that chapter of the law of expectations in 7 Laws for the Learner. And if I go to page 79 in that print book on my shelf, it's going to give me the law of expectation, and it's going to show me where it's used it. Okay. So all I did was search for the phrase, but it showed it to me in my print books. Now I can't do anything but go to that page number, but it at least showed it to me. Okay.
That's handy.
So it is. I think that's going to be a very useful tool. So books searches your books, the books in your logos, as well as any print books you add to logos. Once again, it has to be a book that Logos already sells for you to add it. And you can't read it, you can't mark it up, but you can search it, and that has value.
Yeah.
The other new one is Other. Other is a new search, and it searches particular things in your library. Notice you can search your atlases, you can search your fact book tags, but more importantly, you can search in your documents. Now, your documents are anything that you created in this documents menu. So visual filters, notebooks, passage lists, clipping files, sentence diagrams, whatever, you can now search those documents that you created in Logos. And this was very difficult to do before. It was a very complex search. For example, if I search my documents for Jude, I have a canvas that I created that talks about Jude 6 and 7. But where is that? I don't know. I couldn't remember. So I can search for it, and I can click, and I can open that document that I created and modify it and do whatever I need to with it. And it used to be very hard to search your documents that way. I can search for the word hell. Well, I know that I have a clipping file on hell because I did some research on it for a seminar that I was doing. And here's that clippings file. And it can point me right to that. When you get to the point where you have dozens and dozens of clipping files and dozens of biographies and notebooks and that kind of stuff, being able to search your documents is going to be very, very powerful. And you couldn't do this before. You could, but it was very, very difficult. So those three, all books, all replaces basic everything. Books replaces basic. And Other allows you to search just these 5 categories: fact book tags. So here's that fact book tags. I can say, show me everywhere. We were looking at that before. Pharisees. Okay, so in the Baker Encyclopedia, this is where all the fact book tags are that relate to Pharisees. I mean, it literally searched every resource that has those fact book tags.
Yeah.
And shows me every place that has a fact book link to Pharisees. 2,000 fact book tags. Okay. So that just shows you how much they've expanded the use of fact book tags beyond just your Bible.
Yeah. Wow, and that is handy. So, I mean,
It really is. Being able to search your documents and search for all of these other resources
right.
is really good. Now, there's one last thing. We're not going to get into it too much, but you used to be able to filter, for example, your Bible searches.
Mhm.
You can filter by case sensitive or non case sensitive. Those have all become icons now in this upper left, or
Oh,
excuse me,
okay.
upper right.
Uh-huh.
Match case is this first one. The other one is all forms. And I really don't like how they toggle off and on. When your cursor is over them, you really can't tell if you toggled it or not.
Yeah.
You have to kind of pull your cursor away to see if it's toggled on or off, which I don't like. But match case would be, for example, if you wanted to find every place the pronoun him was capitalized,
Mhm.
you could search with case on. Search all forms is means that if I search the word uh, suffer and I look at the aligned view, notice I've got just the word suffer. But if I match all forms, I'm going to
Mm.
get suffered, sufferings, suffers. I'm going to get all of those forms.
Mhm.
And those used to be kind of pull downs. Now they're out where you can get to them.
I kinda like
And
that.
I do too, because you
Yeah.
could have them turned on accidentally and not remember that they were turned on, and you're not getting the search results that you thought you would, and you
Yes.
don't remember why. And
Mhm.
now you can, at a glance, see that those filters are turned on or off. We won't get into reference match and that kind of stuff. The other thing that they've added is the ability to now split this screen and show a second resource on this. If I click on the ESV and I just go to a passage search, notice now it's going to show me multiple
Oh, okay.
resources in that search. I searched my New American Standard, but it's going to show me those same verses in another um, translation if I want, or even a couple of different translations if I want.
Wow.
And I can compare as I go.
Mhm. That is so cool.
All right. One last thing, they added this plus sign. We're not going to get into it, but if you click on it, I'm going to delete this. If you click on it, these are all the advanced searches that they've changed and how you could search like for a person. It was always hard to figure out the syntax for that now. Now
Yeah.
you could just click on it and type in the person.
Mm.
There's a search in my Bible for every reference to Peter.
Mhm.
And so you've got all of these choices uh, for how these searches work and what the syntax is, and it's all built in and easy to access. And before, it was far more complicated. But we'll do that in the search episode.
It's also kinda cool, and this may be stepping on that search episode, that, like, Simon came up even when you put Peter. Now, most of the verses say Simon who is called Peter or Simon Peter, but
Well, it's actually even better than that. I mean,
yeah.
just to wet your whistle, if I
Okay,
look for
alright.
Peter,
Yeah.
it's even his. It even recognizes that
Yeah.
this
Any
pronoun
reference.
is
Mm.
referring to Peter.
Mhm.
Um, two brothers. Well, who are those two brothers? Peter
Right.
is one of them. So it hit that. Notice
Wow.
Matthew 4:19. He said to them, well, they know for certain that Peter is in that context as that group. And I will make you fishers of men. Peter's part of that group. So it's going to reference Peter in
Wow.
that group because they know for certain from the context that he's in that. This is literally every reference to
Uh,
Peter in scripture. It's very cool.
that's wild. That's wild. The best way to do this is just to play. I think you gotta spend a little time playing around, and then you have to just commit to using it, and
You
for
do. You
me,
do.
particularly in, like, teaching a Bible class, more than sermon prep, because a lot of sermon prep for me is under the gun, but if I'm trying to get comfortable with new things, if I'll just use it while I'm teaching Bible class or preparing to teach Bible class, that helps me a lot. Then
Yeah,
then I start to learn the features and the buttons, and I think, "Okay, I can bring this into the sermon process now. This is good."
I'm the first to admit, as what I would call a Logos power user,
Mhm.
that the learning curve for Logos is steep. There's no
Hmm.
doubt about it. But the power is incredible. I have guys all the time tell me, well, it's so expensive. How could anybody ever justify? I'm telling you, the depth of this tool is unparalleled. And yes,
Yeah.
it's expensive, but the amount of time that it saves you in getting to the resources and the information you need literally saves you days and weeks a year
Yeah.
in doing research, and it's worth every penny. The reality, though, is that guys get frustrated because they invest in it, and then it's hard to learn,
Hmm.
and it takes time. It's one of the reasons why we teach an entire class here at Bear Valley on just using logos. We teach our
Hmm.
guys. I teach almost 30 classroom hours just on how to do this. So
Wow. Wow.
it's a lot to learn. It's a
Yeah,
lot to
no
learn.
doubt. Well, you can find more about the Bear Valley Bible Institute on their website at wetrainpreachers.com. And a lot of great resources, information there, including the 2022 Bear Valley lectures. You can find all those archived there as well, which is kind of cool. You referenced
Which
that a bit ago.
which would include lessons by your host Robert Hatfield, who spoke on our lectureship.
If you're looking for the ones to avoid, then you know
No,
those.
they were great. No, they were excellent lessons. You did a great job. It was excellent.
I
But
appreciate
there is
that.
a lot of good material in that
Yeah.
lectureship. It was a good lectureship.
Yeah.
That idea of clinging to hope and trust in difficult times, I would argue that we've been in some difficult times, and
Mhm.
you can go through and see every session, and some of them are on video, some are on audio, but you can listen to all of the lectureship just going through that resource. So
Yeah,
avail
it's really
yourself of
neat.
that.
Of course, Logos is logos.com, and you can go on there if you have questions about the packages and all that. I think you mentioned the gold library a little earlier. Just kind of go look around, do some reading, pick up the phone, and even call them, bearing in mind you're going to be talking to sales reps when you call them. But they might can answer questions and go
But
from
if
there.
you are in full time ministry, little behind the scenes tip, always
Okay.
tell them on the phone that you are in full time ministry. They will almost always give you some discount
Good to know.
on purchasing a library if you tell them you're in full time ministry.
Wow. Okay, good. Um, Thank you for your time. You have been more than generous as always with your
I
time and
I feel
sharing
like
these
I rambled
resources.
for an hour and 27 minutes, but I hope it was helpful.
No, I don't feel that way at all. This was very, very
Good,
helpful. And
good,
these are those episodes that I have to go back and rewatch again. It was like, I was here. I don't always go back and rewatch all the episodes that we do on Preachers in Training, but
right.
stuff like this, I want to go back through. I want to see some of the processes and walk through them. This is a great, great resource. So thank you for that. Appreciate it a lot.
Also, just to mention, if you are a Logos user and you're struggling,
Mhm.
the on Logos's website there are videos, very short videos that will
Oh
help you with
yeah.
a lot of this stuff. And it avail yourself of that. It really does help. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of um, what they call it. I can
They've
look it
got
up
a whole
really fast.
on their website. They have
Support.
a
Yeah.
yeah, under
Under
support.
the
Mhm.
support tab, you have training, tutorials and training. And under getting started with Logos or basic Bible study or advanced study,
Mhm.
they will tell you how to use these tools. And they're all
Yeah.
very short, 3 to 7 minutes, nothing an hour and a half like coming in here.
During COVID is when I actually switched to Logos, and I'm so glad I did during that time because I actually kinda had the space in terms of,
Right.
the time in the schedule to sit down and watch, and I just watched one after the other, and it was
Yep.
super helpful. I really
It's a
appreciated that.
great resource. Don't
Yeah,
forget that it's there.
yeah. Logos.com under the support, area of the menu, you can find that
Yep.
there. Great. Thank you so much. Wow, this has been wonderful.
Well, I enjoy it anytime. And like I said, maybe we'll do another episode in the next, soon, where we can really focus on searching and how
Yeah,
to manage some of that. But
it
I'd be
really
happy
sounds
to
like
do
there's a
that.
lot there. Yeah, that's
There
great.
is. There is.
Okay, we will look forward to that. Hey, we want to thank all of you for being a part of this edition of Preachers in Training. Hope you'll join us next week as we continue forward in this season 16. If you want links and resources, other episodes, all of that, you can find it on our website, thelightnetwork.tv. We love to hear from you. Preachers at thelightnetwork.tv is the email address. And don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app or on YouTube if you're watching this here, so you never miss an episode. That's going to do it for this week. Until next time, let's go preach the word.